Hi everyone, our names are Maya and Michaela. We're both seniors here at Riviera University studying biology and biotechnology, and our final project focuses on why COVID-19 patients lose their sense of taste and smell.
Despite the world's researchers scrambling to figure out the ins and outs of a virus that has only known to have existed since December of 2019, pumping out hundreds of research articles and experiments in the short time since, there is still very little known about it, and new factors have been cropping up left and right, including two relatively new symptoms of anosmia and hyposmia, which will be the topic of our video.
But here's what we do know. SARS-CoV-2, widely known as COVID-19, belongs to a family of coronaviruses, many of which affect humans, and some of which cause upper respiratory tract infection. There are numerous coronaviruses that can also affect animals, like camels, cows, cats, and bats.
While the source of SARS-CoV-2 has not been definitively identified, we do know that it is one of the rare coronaviruses to have transmitted from animal to human. Two other coronaviruses have their origins in animals: MERS-CoV and SARS-CoV. All three of these coronaviruses, SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV, and MERS-CoV, were transmitted to humans from bats.
When the virus enters the body, it attaches itself to the ACE2 receptors, expressed on the membrane of so many of our body cells. There is an incubation period that can last from 2 days to 2 weeks, during which the individual is asymptomatic but is still contagious. Symptoms present much like the influenza virus, in that the individual can develop a fever, cough, shortness of breath, body aches, congestion, sore throat, etc. All things you would associate with the flu. If the infection gets worse, expect one or more of the following: chest pain, difficulty breathing, confusion, and even an inability to remain conscious. A vital difference between the flu and the virus, however, are the recently documented symptoms, including loss of taste and smell, also known as anosmia for smell and hyposmia for taste.
Before we dive into the finer details of COVID-related anosmia and hyposmia, it is important to recognize just how tightly our senses of smell and taste are intertwined. An impaired sense of smell will impact how you process flavor, since the taste buds detect only the 5 primary categories of taste: umami, sweet, salty, bitter, and sour. The taste buds are not responsible for detection of flavor. It's the nose that allows you to detect flavors such as chocolate or vanilla or coffee. When a person is eating, both taste receptors, the 5 found in the taste buds, and olfactory receptors, there are around 350 of them, are stimulated, allowing the person to detect more than whether a food is just sweet or salty. This ability for the tongue and the nose to work together is called chemosensation, a chemical sensory system that also includes the eyes and throat.
To help us in our research into COVID-related anosmia, we spoke to Dr. Joaquin Malal, head of a Barcelona research group. Upon asking what his research group is doing in the midst of a global pandemic, this is what he answered with.
We focused my group. I am the director of the team, but I have a specific group of research that it's mainly related to upper airway inflammation and the loss of smell. That is the main focus for me, although I work in many other things. But I'm very much interested in smell, and we are working in several issues about smell, and now currently in the COVID-19 issue. Yes, we have been doing since the disease, the outbreak started here in March. We started to do some research in people. We organized an epidemiological study in Spain where participated 15 hospitals, secondary and tertiary hospitals. And we did a study with about 1,000 people with COVID about the sense of smell and the loss of taste. Also, we have participated in collaboration with some people in the United States, in Latin America, and we also conducted one study with the people of Wuhan in China. I mean, we have done several studies around the problem of COVID-19. Most of them centered on the loss of smell. And also we are doing some translational research, looking at the receptors, looking at the expression, the relationship with eosinophils, the relationship with the neurodegeneration of the olfactory neuroepithelium, and so on.
Our research has indicated that the virus does not attack the olfactory neurons themselves. What they really target are cells in the nasal region, such as sustentacular and microvillar cells, which provide structural and metabolic support to the olfactory neurons that funnel odor signals from the nose to the brain. These supporting cells express ACE2, which makes them a choice target for the COVID virus to release spiny S1 proteins, which interact with these ACE2 receptors in order to attach to the cell membranes and invade the cells. The most important thing to know about COVID-related hyposmia is that you are not completely losing your sense of taste. Levine, 2020, wrote an article featuring a COVID patient who reported these symptoms, who also stated that she could still sense the taste of the food she was eating, meaning that her taste buds were still functioning and could still tell whether something was savory, sour, sweet, bitter, or salty. However, according to Dr. Joaquin Malal, there are instances where taste has been affected.
What is quite new in COVID-19 is the loss of taste. The problem is when you eat or drink something, you have a stimulation of both the olfactory receptors and the taste receptors at the same time, because you are chewing and a lot of particles and proteins link goes up and down because you still breathe during you are taking the meal, and the joint sensations of taste and smell, we call it flavor. And some people, even in scientific papers, have some confusion about flavor and real taste. When a smell is affected, flavor is affected. But when smell is affected, it doesn't mean that the taste is affected. Actually, in most of the patients with loss of smell due to inflammatory problems, such as chronic rhinosinusitis, taste is preserved. Taste is not affected at all. In our survey, we asked specifically for the taste that is related to salted, sweet, acidic, bitter, and actually it was affected. It was affected, and many other studies have conducted this kind of discrimination in the questionnaires, and it has been noted the taste is also affected. What means that probably the problem is much stronger than in regular common cold.
At first, some articles we examined seemed to point us toward COVID-related anosmia being trauma-based, with scar tissue playing a role in why a patient might lose their sense of smell. Other articles pointed to an infection-based loss of smell, where an inflammatory response or even a cytokine storm is what blocks odor signals and is what is primarily responsible for anosmia. One article in particular claimed it varies from patient to patient. Dr. Malal disagrees and claims that it is likely infection-based, but that not enough studies have been conducted to form a solid conclusion. Here's what he says.
I don't think it's trauma related. The trauma related, it's due to trauma. I mean, trauma brain injury, TBI, it's one of the main causes of the loss of smell. Among the three main causes, there are many of them, but there are three main causes of the loss of smell in our society. One is the post-viral. Among it, we have COVID-19, but it's also very present in common cold. If you have had a common cold, you lose the sense of smell for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you recover that. Also, trauma brain injury is also very important. Acute trauma brain injury in car accidents, domestic accidents, work accidents. And we have conducted several studies on that about the recovery by olfactory training. And also there is one part that is the only cause of loss of smell that is inflammatory, pure inflammatory, because in all these diseases there are also a degree of inflammation. But in patients with severe rhinitis or severe chronic rhinosinusitis, they have a strong loss of smell, even sometimes total, what it's called anosmia. Among these causes, I mean, the real cause, what is happening in the neuroepithelium to have this loss of smell, we don't really know. We know by some small studies that have been done with common cold. Also, the cause of common cold can be provoked by other coronavirus. There are 7 or 8 types of coronavirus, and this is one. SARS-CoV-2, it's only one. But other coronavirus can induce common cold, adenovirus, rhinovirus, almost 200 types of virus can provoke common cold. And all act in the same way. I mean, there are, but we have to demonstrate that because it's not, we don't have clear studies on that. There are these receptors, the AC2 and the TMPPS2, these are located in the nervous systems a lot, much less in the respiratory system. But in the nervous systems and neuroepithelium, olfactory neuroepithelium is from the nervous system, these receptors can be activated and provoked. But we don't know yet if the loss of smell is due to the activation of the receptors or to some general cytokine storm that is provoked around the neuroepithelium. This is not yet clear because nobody has really conducted good studies in tissue from people who has at this moment COVID-19 problems.
The last question we asked Dr. Joaquim involved the neurological aspect of the virus. Is it possible for SARS-CoV-2 to reach the brain? Turns out it is possible. Here's his answer.
Yes, in theory, yes, because there are a couple of reported studies showing some kind of activation of olfactory bulbs because the entrance of proteins, the stimulation of proteins to the brain can be done also through the olfactory cleft and the olfactory system. And in previous studies done with the SARS-CoV of SARS and MERS, these were two epidemics that occurred 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they found virus particles in animals and also in persons in the olfactory bulb. That means that potentially it's an entrance to the olfactory bulb. Actually, we have done a review and published recently a review that you can find it in English, where we show this possibility that the viruses not only stay and affect the olfactory mucosa, but also the olfactory bulb and maybe other parts of the neural system. What we want to do now is to check that in patients who have died from COVID-19. And we have a program to obtain olfactory mucosa and olfactory